Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I thought with all this talk of food storage and me getting ready to make a pot of soup, I would just go ahead and show you how I do it using the dried foods only method, and then talk a little bit about another method. Now the easiest thing to do, if I was wanting a quick pot of stew, I would take my home canned beef or venison like I have here, from one of the deer that Pat got in the last couple years. A jar of home canned potatoes from our own garden. A jar of home canned carrots. These ones I got at Costco. And a jar of home canned green beans, again from our own garden. And whatever onions, garlic, and spices I want to add to that, just throw that into a pot like that and heat it through, and it's good. So that is the easiest, simplest way to make a quick meal out of your home canned goods. But now let's move on to the dried goods, because a lot of people might be going, okay Heidi, I bought a bunch of Mother Earth products, dried goods, so how am I going to use these things now? So let's get to that. So what I have right here is a pot of bone broth. It's actually quite thick. I just got done cooking it, and then it's a little cold right now because I had it in the fridge. But if I was to leave it longer, it would almost completely solidify. So it's a very thick. And so this is from a chicken that I baked. Now this doesn't count towards the dehydrated, freeze-dried goods. I just want to demonstrate this is what I'm going to start with. You can use just plain water if you have to. But because when I cook a chicken, I hardly ever get chickens that are just bought in parts. I always buy a whole organic chicken, and then I'll bake that up one night, and then I'll use the meat for several meals throughout the week. Then I'll take whatever's left over, you know, the bones and a little bit of meat and things that are left over, add a whole bunch of water to the pot, because this is the same pot that I would have baked the chicken in, and then I will just cook it for 2 days. And so I have a nice good bone broth from what's left there. And then with that, this is just what makes it easy. So now I can make a nice pot of soup, super easy, super simple, by simply adding some either home dried and homegrown goods or some of my Mother Earth Products goods. So let's get started, and I'll show you how I do this. And keep in mind, this is just an option. You can mix and match and do whatever you want in your soup. It's just so easy. And this is the absolute easiest way to use your dehydrated and freeze-dried goods, because you don't have to rehydrate them first. Okay, I'm bringing over some filtered rainwater because I know I'm going to need to add some more water to it, but let me add in my dried goods first so we can see what we've got. So if I want more of a tomato flavor in it, kind of like a tomato soup, then I might add some of my tomato flakes. I don't do this very often in my chicken vegetable soup, but every now and then, just for a change of pace, I like to throw that in there. So I'll put in a good handful of that. And keep in mind, any dehydrated goods you add is going to thicken up even more. Sorry, the dogs like to bark sometimes when they hear the chickens laying an egg. So right now I'm just starting with my own homegrown stuff. So another thing I add almost all the time when I'm making sauces and soups is my own home dried zucchini. This is my favorite way to dry zucchini now, because I can either turn it into a powder to use in breads. It's small enough that I can add to anything. I can rehydrate it and use in zucchini bread if I want. I don't like to grate it. It's just, to me, it's too much of a pain. I just chop it up and dehydrate it. And then here I've got home-dried, homegrown green beans. Green beans dehydrate up wonderfully. They stay, even though this particular jar's been open, because I had it vacuum sealed, but it's the one I'm working through right now. I usually don't bother to reseal it. You can hear it's still pretty crunchy, even though it's been sitting in there and I didn't reseal the jar. Another thing that dries up beautifully vegetable are snow peas. So I like to throw a handful of these in every so often. And I talked about these recently, and this jar has also been open for a while. These are starting to get a little soft because they've been sitting in this open jar for a while, but they're still going to cook up wonderfully. No concerns there. They don't go bad when it comes to dehydrated vegetables, as long as all the moisture is removed. If you lose your seal, or you've opened them like I have and you're just working through them, they don't go bad. They can just get stale. But if you're going to cook it anyway, it really doesn't matter. The flavor is still good. Let's go ahead and move on to the Mother Earth products, so you can see how I'm using the freeze-dried and dehydrated goods I get from them. So I'm going to start with the carrots. So I don't think I've opened this jar yet. I just had to start a new jar. This is one I jarred up in 2018, so it's 2 years old. Because I'll buy the biggest bag, well, not the biggest, but I'll buy a pretty big bag at a time and then put them in jars and just vacuum seal it up. So I put a nice good handful of that. Now, I wouldn't actually call this a soup by the time it's done. It's usually pretty thick. It would actually be more like a stew. I put in some of their onions. I always stock up on their onions. Another option, especially if you're just starting with water and not starting with a broth, is their 3 onion soup dip / mix. They have other soup mixes too. I haven't tried them yet. I'm going to, next time I do an order, I'm going to try a cup, their other ones that they have. They have 2 others for sure that I know of, and I want to give those a try as well. But this is really good in your soups, in your sauces, in your gravies. But since I'm doing all these other kinds, I'm not going to bother adding this in, and because I already have my chicken broth base. Their organic non-GMO sweet corn is excellent in the soups. I also like to use this when I make my tamale pie. I add it into the main mixture. Okay, and then even though I'm going to be using granulated garlic, I still like to add these big garlic pieces that I get from Mother Earth products. I love these so much, and I can eat these right out of the jar. Same thing with the dried onions. They're so good. Okay, and a couple more things. I still have these in the Mylar bags. When I get them in the bags this size to try them, I just don't bother putting them in jars and vacuum sealing them because I'm working right through them. They have a Ziploc, so I just use them up out of the bag. It's still a good idea to use them up as soon as you can because they can go stale. So if you're concerned about that, you may want to go ahead and put it in a jar right away and then vacuum seal it up. Try to push out most of that air. So anyway, I got a handful of the celery. And then one of their newer things that I decided to try was their organic broccoli. So they're starting to get more organic products, which is really good. All their products are non-GMO, but not all of them are organic. And I mostly just buy the ones I don't worry about being organic, but even the ones I wouldn't worry about as much, if it's available in organic, I just go ahead and buy that. Okay, so a handful of each of those. I got one more vegetable to add, and this jar is almost empty. I'm going to have to refill it. This is the jar that I keep in here, and I constantly refill from my other jars. But I have my mixed greens blend, which is pretty much any other green that grows in my garden. And I'm going to put the whole lid of that, use up the last of that, and then I'll just refill this from one of the other jars. Let's move on to our spices. So one of my favorite things to add to my soups is sage, and I'll put up to a tablespoon of that. I might even crush it up just a little bit more. Keep in mind, this has been in this jar like this for quite some time. These kind of jars here are what I keep in my kitchen, and I just add to them when they get empty from the ones that I have vacuum sealed back in my food storage. Another one that you can try are your lavender leaves. I have a video just on lavender leaves and how to use them, and I dry them up and use them as an herb in my various meals. This works really good, and especially in like Italian dishes. It can be a rosemary replacement, but it's a little sweeter and lighter flavored. It doesn't have that same pungent flavor that rosemary has, but it is similar. So I've used them side by side, and they work well together. Let's go ahead and add some thyme, another one of my favorites to add. And that's probably about a well-rounded teaspoon. I wouldn't say it was a whole tablespoon. Basil. I just throw in whatever sounds good at the time. So if you like a little bit of spice, you can either go black pepper or red pepper. I tend to like to use red pepper a lot in my soups. It just depends on what I'm making, which pepper I like. I like black pepper a lot when I'm doing fettuccine, but I like the red pepper for my soups. Now what I have here, oh yeah, the golden oregano. Since my golden oregano is going to start taking off here any day, I've been starting to, I love the smell of it. I'm starting to use this one more. Golden oregano just has it's a beautiful plant, and it has a wonderful, lighter, sweeter flavor than your Mediterranean oregano will have. And then another option would be to add in some paprika. We'll put in about a teaspoon now. Let's put in a little bit more than that. especially since we have the tomato in there. Okay, I just took a taste of this because I remembered that a lot of times I'll add a little bit of salt to the chicken when I'm cooking it. So it doesn't need very much. I'm just going to put in about a ½ teaspoon of salt. Otherwise it will be too salty if I go any more than that. If you don't already have salt in your mixture, I would say a teaspoon. I almost forgot the potatoes. I forgot to bring them in here. I knew something was missing. So this one hasn't been opened yet. Actually, no, I did open it and use some out of it. And I just, since this is such a big jar here, these I also got from Mother Earth, I do vacuum seal this one because it's going to take me a while to work through it. So I only use these potatoes, the dried ones, in my soups. I use my homegrown potatoes and everything else. So anyway, I'll throw in a couple handfuls of that. Now, if you want some other options you can add to your soup, or if you have some grains on hand, like barley, even a whole wheat would be good in this as a grain option. That would give you a little bit more nutrition than just throwing rice in there. That's if you feel like you need some kind of, other than potatoes, maybe you want some other kind of starch to go in there, carbohydrate. And of course, it's going to depend on your diet, your needs, how calorie rich you want to make this as well. Okay, so it's that simple. I've already got some chicken meat in there that I picked off, the remainder of the chicken meat that I've picked off the bones. And so I'm going to add a little water because I know it's going to need a little bit more. And then what I can do is, as it's cooking, I will just watch it and see how thick it gets. Because you got to consider all these dehydrated and freeze-dried goods are going to soak up some of that liquid, and it's going to thicken up the whole thing as a result. So you're going to want to keep an eye on it and just see if you need to add more water as you go. Taste it and see if you need to add some more herbs and spices as well. So all I got to do is go put this on my wood stove and just let it cook for the rest of the day. It really doesn't take that long to cook. You can just bring it to a boil and let it cook for maybe 15 minutes, and it should, your vegetables in there should all be fully rehydrated by that point. Okay, so that's how I throw my soup together. You see how easy that is? Now all I got to do is let it cook. So what I'll do is also insert some pictures of how it looks when it's all done, so you can see right here. And it's that easy. This is one of the reasons I like having dehydrated and freeze-dried foods, whether it be the ones that I dry up myself from my own garden or the ones that I buy from Mother Earth products. I can throw a real quick meal together. I can make a loaf of bread to go with it if I want, or a side of biscuits, or even some cornbread. These are all different options. Or if you happen to have crackers in your food storage, there's another option if you don't have time to make bread. Hope you enjoyed this video, and this just gave you a quick and easy idea of what you can do with some of this. There's so much more you can do with your freeze-dried and dehydrated goods, but since I was making this anyway, I thought I would shoot this video. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.